in 600 AD, the West had consisted of, first and foremost, Sicily and Italy with the Dalmatian coast. Then came the province of Africa with Carthage as its capital. These were still, despite the inroads of the Lombards, integral elements within the Roman Empire. Next came the autonomous sub-Roman kingdoms, firstly Gothic Iberia with its Romanness weighted in the south and east, and continuing through Septimania, an extension of Iberia, across Provincia, Provence, to Liguria in northwest Italy. This civilizational sphere, Western Romania, sharing from time immemorial a common language, religion and way of life, and to some extent still a common government, was bound together through transport networks and institutional exchanges. But between 680 and 720, it too suffered an enormous shock, losing half its population, its cities and ports, to the Muslim invaders. The impact of these two circles of collapse, the inner one of the Western Mediterranean and the wider one of the Mediterranean as a whole, was profound, for it removed the very motor of the ancient economy and drastically disrupted its communications and customary supply lines. The setback was so severe that it has allowed us, in recent centuries, to sensationalize that setback as the Dark Ages, and to extrapolate those events backwards to 2 centuries earlier as a sudden and complete collapse of civilization, and to blame that upon the Germanic ruling class in a movement we have called the barbarian invasions. Although there was serious political and economic disruption during the 400s and 500s, it should be noted that this mainly occurred at the edges of the Roman world, not in its heartlands. The loss of imperial revenues from Iberia, Gaul and Britannia certainly politically weakened Italy, but this made Italy itself only more dependent upon Constantinople and drew it further into its sphere of influence and control. The loss of these western peripheries, Iberia and Gaul, was not seen as a systemic crisis at Constantinople, not at all. The common perception of there having been a fall of the Roman Empire and of ancient civilization in or around 476 AD has been marked by a Eurocentric prejudice, unwarranted by the facts. You may recognize in this description an echo of the model which historians have called the Pirenne thesis. Henri Pirenne was a great European, a man before his time. Pirenne began to challenge the notion that Germanic barbarians had brought down the Roman Empire, and with it, Roman civilization. While in a German prisoner of war camp during the First World War, he developed his thesis further. He pointed out the essential continuity of the economy of the Roman Mediterranean even after the so-called barbarian invasions, and that the Roman way of life did not fundamentally change for several centuries after the dissolution of the office of the Western Emperor. He published his views in the book Medieval Cities, Their Origins and Revival of Trade in 1927, and in his posthumous Mohammed and Charlemagne in 1937. What Pirenne perceived was that the ancient world went down due to a far more consequential series of events, that is, to the Islamic invasions 2 centuries after the Germanic migrations, in both the East and the West, which precipitated the economic and social disintegration of the ancient civilization by removing the material basis and geographic prerequisites for the persistence of that particular form of life, that is, an integrated and secure Mediterranean world. So let us state this succinctly and without self-censorship. The civilization of antiquity was not destroyed by the so-called barbarian invasions, but it was by the Islamic ones.